So we have another victory in that wonderful battle of ideas that Rave Dubin loves to talk about. Now, you guys are probably so tired of these segments by now, but I'm going to cover it anyway because I love them. So another caller spoke to David Pakman and gave details, this time, like, a lot of specifics on how he turned to the right wing on YouTube. Like, what was the descent? What was that pipeline, as they call it, that led to the right? Let's listen, and then I'll break it down.
This is Joseph from Michigan.
Hey, Joseph, what's going on?
I just wanted to give a big thank you because you and Kyle Kulinski really helped pull me out of a really far right place that I had been over the past few years.
How'd you get into that far right place?
But my family's pretty liberal, so I was just, kind of like another caller I called not too long ago.
Yeah.
I just kind of, when I started getting into politics, I just automatically assumed, oh, hey, I'm just, going to be on the left. But what happened was I came across a video from a YouTuber known as Shoe on Head.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, oh, just a person on the left criticizing people on the left. But then from her, I got to Armored Skeptic, her boyfriend, now fiance, I think. And from him, I got to Blair White, and it just kept going down this rabbit hole until eventually I was watching Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern, and eventually I watched a video by T.J. Kirk where he references Kyle Kulinski. So I went to watch him, and in the recommended of the video I was watching from him, I got a video from you, and I was watching you two for like the past 6 months, and you've really deprogrammed me, pulled me out of the place I was at.
What would you say was the most extreme belief that you actually sort of incorporated into your set of beliefs?
The belief to ban all immigration coming into the U.S.
That's interesting. A bunch of the people that have called in and said that they were pulled into the right and then got out of it, a lot of them say that they were pulled into the right with immigration related, sort of pseudo-nationalist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant stuff. That is interesting. I mean, it's anecdotal. It's just people who call me, but that is notable that a bunch of them mention that.
So we learned a lot there. When it comes to that issue of immigration, yeah, that is one of those issues where people can kind of get hooked in and then they go further and further right. And it's interesting because it's actually one of those issues where if you really think about it, a lot of the language is like cloaked, and a lot of they really take the rough edges off of the ugly truth of what they really believe. So you have a lot of people who, and I'm not saying everybody who believes in, strong borders or whatever is by definition a bigot, because I don't think that's true. But you do have a lot of people who are bigots who can then turn around and use that more mainstream conservative rhetoric as a gateway, because they talk about being, strong on immigration, having a strong border, and it goes from, oh, no, we're just against illegal immigrants. We're fine with legal immigrants. But then every now and then you'll notice there will be like little slip-ups, and they'll kind of show you, well, no, it's not just that we're against illegal immigrants, we're also against illegal immigrants. And then it becomes even more clear, well, they're, hey, if they're legal immigrants and they happen to be from Norway or Sweden, well, we're kind of fine with them. But if they're legal immigrants from Mexico or South America, well, those are the ones we have problems with. And it's just, the more time goes by and the more you really flesh out what these people are trying to say, it becomes clear that with many of the people, again, not all the people who are in favor of a strong border and are conservative on immigration, but with a lot of them, it does kind of come down to like, brown people bad, keep them out. But now let's get to the specific pipeline here. Now, he says he went from Shoe on Head to Armored Skeptic to Blair White to Stefan Molyneux, and then he was watching a TJ Kirk video, and TJ referenced me, he started watching me, and then he watched me a bunch, and then he watched David Pakman a bunch, and now he considers himself deprogrammed. So I think that the idea of a right-wing pipeline, in many instances it's true and it happens, and there's plenty of evidence for it because people exist who say, I started here and I ended up all the way over here, and some people all the way to Richard Spencer or whatever. And that's all fair, and that's fine, and this is people's personal experience, but I will also say, we got to be careful because a lot of people, I think, it's unfair to act like all they are is a gateway to the right. And David Pakman actually brings up this point in the segment here, and a part you didn't see there, but he says, one of the things I'm concerned about is people being so, like, wishy-washy and so malleable that they're just, it's so easy to convince them that it's almost like they can't handle YouTube because it's like they just automatically agree with whatever anybody's telling them. And he's concerned about that. Now, thankfully, this guy said it was 4 years that was the descent into the right-wing beliefs, and then it was, whatever it took, 6 months out to get out of it. But yeah, that is maybe an issue as well. The issue of how equipped are people to deal with differing viewpoints and determining what's true and what's false, and what framework of the world do they have to really digest information and then break it down to determine what they think is true and what they think is not true. And I think, listen, the main thing to me is, this is what I want to tell people more than anything else. You're allowed to say, hey, I agree with these people over here on X, Y, and Z. I agree with these people over here on A, B, and C. And they're totally different politically, but that's where I stand. Because I think people oftentimes, they think like they have to default to an entire worldview. Like, oh, whatever Steven Crowder's saying, I agree with all of it. Why? It's possible to say, well, I think he's right on that, but then all these other things I think he's wrong on. Like, you're allowed to use your mind, you're allowed to be an independent thinker, you're allowed to come to your own conclusions, and you don't have to default to whatever somebody's saying, whether it's a strong personality or whether it's somebody who you're reading and philosopher from back in the day or whatever it might be. You're allowed to pick and choose and determine what's true based on your own research and what jives with you the most. So while I do think this right-wing pipeline is a real phenomenon, I also think we shouldn't over-rely on that being a thing, because people do have agency and they can think for themselves, and they should be willing to draw lines and say, I agree with them on this, but I don't agree with them on this, or whatever it may be. And I also think it's just a little bit unfair maybe to some of these people who, like Shoe on Head or Armored Skeptic, or like, they would probably say, I don't condone people going, way to the right of me, but starting with me. And, they would probably contend I've made arguments against those right-wing beliefs, so it's on them that they went there. It's not on me. So it's a little bit of a messy reality here where I think both things are true. I mean, it's true that you have, a descent that a lot of people go in towards very odious beliefs, but it's also true that there's a descent out based on other YouTubers and commentators. And it's also true people have agency, and I think most people are people we don't hear about, where they will just say, I agree with some points over here and some points over here, and it's not, it's not this giant pendulum swing from one set of extreme beliefs to another set of extreme beliefs. So, whatever. Either way, I think it's an interesting conversation, and I'm always happy when I hear these deprogramming stories, because it means that some of what we do is landing, and that's always going to feel great.